And then there's performing rights. The performing rights organizations, the PROs, represent songwriters as well. And the performing rights have to do with public performances. The stakeholders for song royalties, composition royalties, are the songwriters and the publishers. The stakeholders for the recording royalties are the performer on the CD, the recording artist, right, as opposed to the songwriter. The label typically earns some of the royalties, the producer, and the other musicians and singers on the album. All those people usually share in the royalties. And those royalties can come from a number of different places: synchronization, use in film and television, and games and movies and stuff, reproduction, making copies of it, and they consider streaming a kind of reproduction or sale these days, and performance rights. So for performing rights organizations for publishing and songwriters, they cover bars, restaurants, clubs, concert venues where your songs are being played, streaming services, film and television broadcasts, shopping malls, radio airplay. The streaming public performances are tracked individually. Like each song is tracked, the information's entered in. You know how many streams you got of your song. But all the other stuff, bars and clubs, concert venues, even radio broadcasts are like sweeps week kind of survey. They have a certain time of the year, they listen, they're like, this many people were tuned in at this time and they were listening to this and these songs played, and they calculate the share of royalties based on a sampled survey. There are some stations that will report every song that they play and stuff like that, and the streaming services report every song they play. And I do believe that TV and film report all of their public performances of songs. So if you wrote a song that's in a TV show and it airs on TV, that's different than the regular synchronization rights that you would license your song to be in a TV. It's a public performance royalty just being broadcast on a TV show. So the PROs track, collect, and distribute these royalties. Small clubs and independent venues pay into this. The artists that play them are underrepresented in the royalties, even though there's lots of artists playing lots of small clubs. The performances aren't being tracked. So it's incumbent upon the artists themselves to track their performances. And there are tools for everybody to report their own performance of their set of music. ASCAP and BMI are the two big PROs. Typically, you will join as a songwriter and then either say, I'm a self-publishing songwriter, join as a songwriter and sign on with somebody else's publishing company for a flip of songwriting royalties, or start your own publishing company and be a self-published artist that owns their own publishing company. Those are the three paths. You don't have to have a publisher in hand when you sign up initially for one of these services and start registering your songs. You could join a publishing company later. It would require you to do some additional work on the page to say 50% of this now belongs to a publishing company, but it's really some basic data entry. And ultimately, for you to get royalties from the PROs, it's basic data entry. So what do? Well, you first thing you do is you join one of these organizations, ASCAP or BMI. Basically, you apply for one of these PROs, either one, and then they go through a verification process and make sure you're a real person, and then they're like, okay, you're verified, and then you can start entering your catalog, and basically you're like, did I write this song 100%, or did somebody write it with me? So it'll also ask you who wrote the music and who wrote the lyrics. So I join a PRO, I enter my songs in there, I say who wrote the lyrics and who wrote 50% of the music and who wrote the other 50% and whether I have a publisher or not. And then they verify them, and then you start to get royalties. And then if you do shows where you play your own music, they have an app or a feature on their website in each case where you can just put in your set list. And list the covers you do of other people's songs because they'll get a royalty. It doesn't cost you anything. The venues are already paying for this. The venues, by and large, would prefer to have the money go to the artists that are performing at their space rather than just the big artists that they assume the royalties are going to. And the vast majority of musicians I talk to in our scene just don't do that. They have original music, they're playing places like the Beachland or Brothers Lounge or whatever that's paying the royalties to the performing rights organizations for the right to have your songs included be publicly performed there. And the musicians in town really are like, oh, it's not worth it, or I don't know how to do it, or I never thought about it, and it really doesn't take that much time. And they all have features, or Ask Captain BMI have features where you can save a set list. If you do the same set 2 times, all you have to do is push a button then in the same set. You just say, on this date, at this location, I played these songs. And then you'll start getting paid. And maybe it starts out with an extra $10 or $20 a gig here and there. But then you add that up because you get it from your quarterly gigs, and you did 4 a month for 3 months or 6 months, and then you get paid for 24 gigs halfway through the year, 2 times a year or whatever. It's in a little direct deposit bump is nice. But that's the basics around those. It's really just register for a service, list your songs, and then start listing that you are performing them.